Another interesting behavior crocodiles have is that they're highly intelligent, and they use that intelligence to a different level other than other reptiles. So this is something that was quite novel. They discovered this behavior in 2013, where they found at the onset of the breeding season, nesting season of wading birds, crocodiles would collect twigs and sticks floating on the water and balance it on top of the snout, and that would lure the birds in and to collect the sticks, and they would hunt and attack the birds right there. So this was observed in alligators and also mugger crocodiles from Madras Crocodile Bank. Well, I'm yet to observe it in the wild, and I hope so. All of you who go to national parks can keep an eye on these things. Uh, yeah. So, keeping all this in mind, we can now discuss about prevention of attacks and how can we counter the conflict in Sri Lanka. And I think one major method that people have used throughout is using Type 1 CEs, how I call it, is private bathing enclosures they have built around in the area of the river or the lake where they bathe. They would use sticks and vines to tie upon to bind them. And but this is nothing for a big crocodile to break and wait till a man or some other animal come and attack them. It's not a big deal for them. Even these built by people for their for public use, not for private use. But even these are not that good for uh, preventing crocodile attacks. The ideal measure that was ideal crocodile exclusion enclosure is this using Pakistan GI pipes and really strong measures to bind these and fix them near the water's edge. These have been 100% successful in Nilwa River and some parts in Valave River. These are built by the Disaster Management Center in Mathura. Right now we have about 49 built, and Nilwa River itself requires about another 25. And the biggest constraint we have is the cost. It's quite expensive, about 300,000, 400,000 rupees just to build one. And now, but gladly, money was passed to build a couple of them in Kalina River. So we're really looking forward to that. In a couple of months, we can have some of these pens installed in the Kalina River. Even though the government spends so much money on these crocodile exclusion enclosures, people still think it's the responsibility of the government to maintain them. They won't see it's as their responsibility, but because most of these crocodile pens right now are established in tidal rivers where there is a high flow and a low flow happening in different seasons. So there's always debris and mud being collected in these pens, and it damages these pens quite quickly. So we have assigned several committees in each location where there are crocodile pens in Nilwa River. I think this sort of measure can be used in other areas as well. And I'm focusing on doing this in other areas like Valave and Kalani and Thisamarama, so on. Public awareness is another important thing. Sending out the message about crocodile conservation, about the ecology, physiology, behavior, and times of activity, etc. So this can be done in several methods. By having public lectures, going door to door, talking to people, spending about 10-15 minutes with each household, explaining people. This is something I carried that I've been doing for like 5 years now in Nilwara River, and just initiated in other parts of the country as well. So this way you can get close to the people and talk to them and explain what their and also get their information about what their problems are, in preventing attacks in the future. So, and the main thing here is to encourage people to use safe area if they're available. And this is something I used in Mathura. I sent out a three-wheeler attached with with loudspeakers that would go to major towns and uh, close to households and give out a message about the presence of crocodiles and also a warning to be safe and use safe areas where there are crocodile exclusion enclosures. And even though we keep try hard to make people aware, there are people like this. This is an instance of Nilvara River. This exact location, two people were attacked by crocodiles over a period of 5 years, and this man is related to one of them. He still uses this area for bathing, even though he has pumped water and dug well in his house. He feels like he has to go and use the river. And this is an area where we can't put up crocodile exclusion enclosures because there are so many rocks in that area of the river. So it's people like this we need to come up with some different solutions to talk to them and make them use safe areas. And again, poverty affects people when it comes to implementing solutions as well. This is another absurd story that I encountered in Wallaby River. This person was attacked by crocodiles twice within a span of 1 year. I went to meet him at his house, but he wasn't there, and I spoke to his daughters and family, and they said that he has gone fishing, and that's exactly the reason why he was attacked by the crocodiles. He was he throws out cast nests. That's his fishing method, and both of these instances were when he was casting nets. And when I went to the point where I could meet him, he was there in the middle of the river doing the same thing. So, and this guy was really badly affected the first time he got bitten, but he doesn't really care. He's not affected with monetary issues anyway. He has his own house, his children are earning, feeding him, and all that. He's just doing it for fun apparently, and it's just I can't really understand these kind of people. So it's really confusing when it comes to working with conflicts with animals, and I don't even intend on working on elephants. That's a whole different story. It's sad and pathetic situations happening there. And another thing here is that irresponsible parenting, I would say, where in front of the parents, these kids would climb up the crocodile pen and jump over the crocodile pen into areas where there are crocodiles. One interesting thing happened in Dialape, freshwater stream that leads to the Diyagala in Nilva River. There is a seminary, Buddhist seminary close by, and all the young monks used that small stream to bathe. And the chief monk requested a crocodile pen to be built there. So disaster management readily went and just built a crocodile pen there because there are big crocodiles hanging around that area. And the monks started doing this, the young ones, and the chief monk put a ban on these on the young monks to go and bathe in the crocodile pen. So now nobody's using that, and it's just a waste of money of about 400,000 rupees being for that. So now we are thinking of using those and building up another crocodile pen somewhere else. And I believe not only making people, general public aware, I believe making influential people like religious leaders is really important. So I have approached a couple of Buddhist monks in areas like in Wallaby River, some parts in Gaul, Mathura, and Kalini River. I even met the Kalini chief monk, He has, and then also some of the Muslim priests in some areas. Then awareness programs should also be conducted to local government offices, division secretariats, and Grama Sevakas. And it's something I've been doing in the Nilva River throughout the past past 5 years. I've been working there, and this way they would know how to use the knowledge they gathered to find practical solutions to counter the conflict. Putting up signboards is a good way of reminding the people that there are dangerous crocodiles in the area that they live in, because people forget uh, that there are man eaters after a couple of months later an incident happened. So it's good to have warning signs placed in high conflict areas. This is the most practical and the most effective solution for this conflict is introducing an alternative water source for people. So if you take, for example, the Mathura Nilvala River, attacks in Mathura area, the Mathura area, which is about 12 kilometers from river mouth, used to be badly affected about 20 years ago. But 15 to 10 years ago, there's not a single attack from Mathura itself. So that's because of all the people there now have pumped water, and they have an alternative water source, so they don't have to go to the river. But if you go beyond that point, and if you go for 20 kilometers upstream, there are people still struggling with water issues, and the government in some areas can't give government supplied water. And even if they get government supplied water, they can't pay the bill. That's a big complaint that we get when I go and talk to people. So we just have to come up with new ways of. So I was thinking to pump water using solar powered water pumps. This can be pumped into bigger tanks where people can come and use water. And so a Muslim community in Nilva River use a bathing tank, like here. They've segregated two areas for ladies and men. This is by pumping water from the river. So they all get together and pay a small sum for the electricity bill, and so that's quite a successful thing. And this is quite cheaper than putting up crocodile pens. So we need to look at implementing these, and also you can pump water from the river for people that live along the edge, for individual households. There are some people that can't even afford, so you have to think of ways of getting people these water pumps. And people living in very close to the river, like adjoining the river, face a problem with having crocodiles coming into their garden. Uh, so one way of stopping this is by putting a exclusion fence using GI pipes and a strong mesh. The cost for this came down to about 10,000 rupees per 10 feet. And I managed to implement some of this in Nilva River. Spoke to some of the local businessmen, and managed to put some fences along areas where there are people. And the picture on the bottom here is a 16-footer that has come into the backyard of a person living in Nilva River. And he has small kids also, and he's dead scared of this thing. And also, something very important is that in management of conflict situations, that if you don't have numbers, reliable numbers, we can't do anything about it. So right now we don't have reliable numbers for leopards. Elephants, there have been studies done, but I think more and more studies needs to be conducted in a proper standardized way. So standardization is number one. So right now we have no idea what the population trend is like among crocodiles. All the surveys have been just one-time surveys. So I think it's extremely important to do annual surveys that cover the dry season and the wet season, so we understand what's the population or the numbers change during that time. And also, if we can do it at least for about 6 years, then we'll have understanding if the population is stable, decreasing, or increasing. This is very important, and this has been done. The Australians have been doing it for 40 odd years, and using those numbers as a baseline, we can further expand our study into understanding how their movement patterns are in Sri Lanka, and especially saltwater crocodiles, how they move around the tidal rivers and in between. And we have no idea even if we have connections, we still have connections with Orissa or not, or even with the Andamans. So these are very important things that we need to do. And I think it's a mandate of the Department of Wildlife to conduct annual surveys on carnivores and prey species. Uh, they're not even doing this in protected areas, so but it'll be this I hope to encourage the department to conduct surveys in the future and conducting water quality surveys, looking at how water quality changes, because this I believe has affected the Canali River. Canali River is one of the polluted rivers in Sri Lanka, and it's really bad compared to other tidal rivers. And the population in Canali River is extremely low compared to other tidal rivers that I have surveyed. So usually the density of a river close to the river mouth would be about 4 to 5 non-hatchlings per kilometer. But in the Canali River, the area where the close to the river mouth, an 8 kilometer stretch, the numbers I got was 0.5 per kilometer. It's like so I came across 5 animals in an 8 kilometer stretch. That's just really bad. And these 5 animals, there are only 2 or 3 large animals that are causing problems to humans. And that's another thing that needs to be highlighted, is that density does not correlate high number of human crocodile conflicts. While doing surveys, you come across barriers, problems doing surveys. One night while I was doing my survey, I got stuck in the middle of the river. The river was stuck with some debris that has come from upstream, and it took us about a good 4 hours to clear this out. I got the help of villagers. They found the bamboo stuck in here were as gold because they can use it for firewood. So I got their help, and this was the only time I got into a croc-infested river. Something that I've promised myself that I'll not do, but I had to in this situation. There are fun times also while doing surveys, floating coconuts and plucking kirala during the season. Give the coconuts for the boat rider in the end. And another important solution, something that can be used for the example I gave right at the beginning, is to put up bridges for like a very cheap bridge or something that can be put up to help people cross instead of using ferries like open canoes or even rafts like this. I believe during the late 80s and 90s, there was a program where they put up small bridges among joining short areas of such canals. I think something like that can be implemented for these areas as well. And managing waste is another important thing. Although people think throwing rejects of slaughterhouses, and this will encourage people to attack humans. That's not. It has nothing to do with it. Crocodiles, like I said earlier, they would use if their senses are triggered to hunt, or their predatory instinct is triggered, they would just go and attack. So this is another misconception people have. So croc watching tours is something that I've opposed, but I think if you can encourage responsible tourism in areas like Nilvela River, they can use it as a method of making people aware. and getting people interested in crocodiles that way. But yeah, during my survey, people were against it, most of the respondents. And I agree with them because if locals are encouraged to do this, uh, that can be a problem because if there are no crocodiles, they would try to feed them and try to attract crocodiles. And this is something really bad because they might associate boats and people with food. This is what's happening in Australia, and Australia has still hasn't learned from these examples, and there are people being attacked in Australia quite often while on boats. They have so this is something should not be encouraged in Sri Lanka. I mean, irresponsible tourism, croc watching tours. Translocation is also a very questionable mitigation measure. It can only be done on several certain instances, but this should be highly discouraged because one thing is most of the attacks, like I said, is from saltwater crocodiles. So most of the animals that are being the finger is pointed mostly at saltwater crocodiles. So these animals have extremely well developed homing ability where they can travel almost about 400 kilometers from where they were put out, translocated. They can come back within, like one instance in Australia was that it took an animal just 2 months to get back to its location. So it traveled almost like 20 kilometers a day to travel 400 kilometers back to where it was caught. And site fidelity and territoriality is something also very important because removing a big crocodile will always encourage another big animal to expand its range, or even a subordinate male to come and take over a new habitat. And the worst thing about this is creating a false picture in an area where there are crocodiles propagating. So, for example, so like all these areas like where there are crocodiles, you can't put on you can't take all the crocodiles from an area and say, okay, it's safe, you can go and bathe now. This is one of the major issues that we deal with. And I heard that already 8 crocodiles have been caught in the Manik River. This is as a precautionary measure to prevent pilgrims from Padayatra being subjected to attacks in the Manik River, and that's, I think it's a really non-wise move that the department and the divisional secretariats people there in that area had made. We could come up with some good other solutions to that. This is another example about uh, translocation not working properly. This is an instance in Bolgoda. Uh, these are traditional fishermen that mainly goes collects prawns. They come out uh, with lamps in the evening around 6:30 in the evening and go on till about 4 o'clock in the morning. Not a single boat has ever been attacked during the time of doing this job for almost like 30-40 years. In around October, November in 2014, a big crocodile in this area in Bolgoda started attacking kites. And so the department was compelled to translocate this animal due to the request of the people. So just a couple of months later, there was a crocodile that had come here and started attacking all these boats. I think within a span of 6 to 7 months, 7 attacks happened. Luckily, none of the people were attacked, damaged really badly. Just one guy got attacked, got a scar on his thigh. So this means these are all territorial attacks and not attacks aimed at humans itself. And this is a problem that comes up with translocation. And this is an example of coexistence where I got involved and helped out some people. This is a 60-meter stretch of open water along a canal of Marbola. So on the extreme ends of the 60-meter open area were Iconia, and there were two juvenile salties that were trapped here, about 4.5 foot animals that were trapped in this area. They were happy because this area was adjoining a house that's connected to a restaurant that's owned by the same guy who lives in the house. So it's a very narrow bank in his backyard, which is about 5 meters away from his house and the river, the canal. So he was a bit worried that the crocodiles would come out and do some harm to his children. But I managed to convince him that the heavy rains in the coming season would wash away the Iconia and take the crocodiles away. And as a predator, it happened. And the people were happy to have the crocodiles with them for that 6 months, and so it was really good for all of us at that point. And something that comes up with translocations is that there are some instances where we can't do anything about it. We have to remove crocodiles and take them and put them somewhere else. So I think instead of translocation, we can come up with a containment facility uh, for rogue crocodiles that come into houses, gardens, or drainage systems. But I think what the government and the department can focus on is having a containment facility for other animals as well, because there are so many rescue calls coming in for the department for grey langurs, for purple-faced langurs, grey langurs, macaques, fishing cats, water monitors, and wading birds, and all that. So if they can have I think there's one being built in Athidia, and then if they can replicate that in other provinces and districts, it will be very useful. Thank you very much for listening to my talk, and I'd like to thank some people for this, Rukshan, for giving this opportunity, and all those who have helped me with my work. And you can throw in your questions right now. Yeah, thank you very much.